have here a 1993 Kawasaki 1500 Vulcan. The original problem, I just actually fixed it, or had been working on it. The hose here, where it goes into the back cylinder, the head, there's a tube that goes down into the head, and then on this tube there's a like a bolted connection, and it slips through a socket opening, and then there's an O-ring down here that seals this thing. So the thing was leaking, and the O-ring needed to be replaced. I went and got just a standard 5/8 O-ring from the auto store and put it on with a little bit of grease. The grease I used was like that silicone grease that you can get for your home faucets and stuff. But anyways, it's held. I've started it back up and it's pressurized. But the issue I have now, and what I'm wanting to work on, is this fuel line right here in between the two cylinder heads where the carburetor is at. There's a fuel line that I can't see what's going on with it, but I know that it's dripping off of that fuel line. It looks like it's coming from the backside, the drip. It's coming down and it's dripping right here, and it's dripping down onto the engine. After I fixed the coolant leak, I thought I had things going well until I noticed the fuel was dripping and the engine was hot, and it was actually kind of steaming up the fuel. I got a little worried, of course. Don't want to burn the darn thing down. Anyways, that's the goal for today. We're going to remove the carburetor so I can get to the tubes, the fuel lines, and we're going to try to address the fuel leak. So wish me luck. Let's see how it goes. I've taken off the air filters to try to get an idea of where this stuff bolts and how to get to everything, and in an attempt to get the carburetor out of here, I just started pulling things so I can have more room. I'm trying to elevate this air duct. I see now the fuel line comes out of the pump, kind of circles around through the filter, pulled those brackets and everything off, and I've pulled the I think it's the thermostat housing. It's where you fill your radiator up, your coolant up, out of here, which, by the way, I think that was the first part that they put on this vehicle, and they built everything else around it. This is part number 1. It's where you start building one of these. Put this, and then build everything around it. So in order to get this out of the tight little hole it was in, had to take this bracket off. I just kind of screwed it back on hand tight. But this is where it bolts into the 2 bolts on the right-hand side of the bike. There's 2 bolts in the frame. It bolts right here. Right here. And then, anyways, that's that. All right, so we got it pulled out. And looking down on this thing, I'm going to try to move this back up out of the way. And there's like a rubber slip-on to go from here into the intake of the carburetor on this side. Then there's another one on this side, so I'm going to pull that from there, try to lift it out. That's the goal at this point.
Before we go digging too far,
Hey, I'm back. Here, give me a second.
guys always got to start in the trunk. Fellas,
Let me pause that. I don't want Vice Grip to get all copyright on me. All right, yeah, so I've taken the fuel pump, unbolted it, moved it over to the side. The duct that was in here for the intake from the filters, removed it. Once everything was kind of pulled, it really comes out pretty easy. It looks like it wouldn't, but it wasn't too bad. Now I'm down to, I got the vacuum lines pulled off, and I'm going to be pulling out the carburetor. One of the things about getting that duct out of there is I had to remove this vacuum module here, and so that's that. Should be good to go. Now I'm ready to pull the carburetor out and get the fuel leak fixed. But since I pulled this thing apart from the top, it's probably meant to pull the carburetor out of the side, which is fine, but I kind of wanted to get in here and take it apart, move things around so I can clean this up. It looked like it'd been messed with before, and some of the wiring harness was really tight. So I want to clean up and make it flow better and put it back zip tied well and just inspect all the connections, make sure everything's good to go. Got the carburetor loose. Now I'm gonna try to see if I can figure out where that leak. When I turn this thing was leaking. The top one looked good. This top hose, this fuel line, the main fuel line where it comes in from the filter and the pump, it looked good, but it's leaking down this hose right here. And I'm trying to pull that out and figure out why. I don't know if it's actually rubbed against the head there, or if that connection or tube or in some way there's a leak. It's migrating from somewhere down to this hose and going down and dripping this hose that's here. Let's see if I can pull it around where you can see it. That bottom hose right there. That one is dripping. And I believe it's coming from up here somewhere. So let me pull this thing out, get it on the bench, and get a look at it. Here's a good look at that line that was leaking, but it's kind of what I was worried about. As I'm pulling it out here, I see everything looks clean. Nothing really stands out. No smoking gun, you know, is being the problem. So I may just wind up replacing the fuel lines and going back and trying it again. But I will definitely rig up a fuel source of in some way, so I don't have to put the tank and all this stuff back together until at least I know I've got the fuel leak nailed down and completed. Hey, I got the carb out, and I'm looking here. This is the back side that's facing up right in here. So this is where the fuel line came in, and then here it looped down and yeah, it goes to the other side. There's a good reason for that. Google it, you can probably figure it out. Anyways, this thing comes in, loops down, and goes to the other side of the carburetor, which is towards the front of the bike. And there's where it connects. Okay, all right. So that's the fuel source, and it loops over and clips to the other side because it has to go to both carburetors. Hey, there we are, learning stuff. Okay, so this right here has a hole in it, and it was on the back of the block, right where I sit, or the back cylinder side. So right here, if I tilt it, see that bad hose? I think at some point it may have had a pair of pliers trying to get that on and off, or whatever, for whatever reason. So I've got new fuel line, and it looks like there's a outer protective thing here to keep it from, you know, rubbing up against the cylinder wall. So we'll make sure to get that length right, and we'll get that protector back on or something else equivalent. Put this thing back together. The guy I bought it from, he said that he had sent the carburetor out and they done something to it or whatever. But either way, it leaked before, it leaks after, and now I think we're going to get that leak fixed, which has got me excited because I'm ready to get this thing all cleaned up and put it out in the sun and listen to it and stare at it and ride it around and stuff. So as you can see, fuel leak located. I had the camera wrong. I apologize for that. It was backwards when I was filming where I found the leak, but that was a genuine find. So I thought about re-recording that, but no, if I do that, it's gonna be scripted, and to me, that's just junk if it's scripted. I want it real. That's the real find, genuine find. All right, so I think it's pretty obvious what we do at this point. Replace the line and continue forward. Need to do some cleanup. I have some spray and wash. Excuse me, my voice is kind of giving out, but I got some spray and wash, spray and wipe type stuff, and I'm going to just get in there in all the nooks and crannies. And I know it's an old bike and it's not that valuable or anything, but I'm proud of it. It's something, and I'm going to try to shine it up. It's not a showpiece, but it's going to be cleaned up when I put it back together. All right, been at it for a while. I decided this is a good time to replace the fuel filter, mainly because I broke this one, the little end of it, I broke it. Okay, so everything's out. I put a little bit of that silicone grease. I've got some other grease. Maybe I should have used more of a petroleum just to lube it up. It looks like that's going to be pretty tough getting that back in there. And one of the things I done, we'll see how this goes, but When I put the hose on, this hose that I'm using is much tougher looking. You can see the diameter here is the other hose that was on it and the type. But you can see that diameter of that hose is the same. It's a 1/4 inch hose, and what I used to replace it with is still 1/4 inch hose, but you can see it's much thicker. So now there's the end of the filter I broke off in there. You can see I got to dig that out. But that diameter is the same, but the outer diameter is much larger, so this is much tougher hose. So because of that, I'm not going to put the, plus there's some kind of fiber in there. I'm not going to put the outer, see this got an outer piece here. I'm going to leave that off. And I went with hose clamps. It's kind of jammed up in there tight. I don't know if that's a good move or not. And I put that grease because when this seals back on, that's going to be a tight fit. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. But I'm getting ready to get everything together and start putting it back in. So I got these greased up a little bit. Like I said, those hose clamps are going to be a tight fit in there. I hope that doesn't come back to bite me. So I'm going to try to put it on here shortly. Yeah, the stopping point for the day, I'll call it for this video. The carburetor's back in. I got the fuel filter ready to go, and everything's ready to put it all back together. So, till next time, thanks.